And Friends comes away with a rebound and a chance to take the lead. 33-32, Emerlehu going for the lead from the left wing. Emerlehu with the triple on the move, ready to run her from 8 feet. No, Jackson snares down the miss and then puts it home for the right side. Jackson in double figures for Friends. Trey Reed looking inside, off to Emerlehu, turns down to 3, kicks it left wing to Trey Reed. He drives in the lane, now to the rim, scoops it up and in, and he got fouled. 7. Tabor ahead with 1:40 to go in overtime. Here's Garner, strong move to the cup on Zoe Rust. She throws it up and makes it, and she gets fouled for one more. Friends ahead, Barberry goes up, and he flushes it down. Barberry taking flight and getting a body in the process. What's going on, everyone? Voice of the Friends Falcons, Pat Strathman here with another edition of the Friends Basketball Show on ESPN Wichita 92.3 FM, broadcasting from Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. Lots of exciting stuff taking place this weekend with the NFL wild card action. You have conference play heating up in college basketball at the D1 level. So many things going on in the sports world right now, and there's no better place than Walk-On Sports Bistreaux to catch the game. So many TVs here out at Maze Road, and they also have excellent food. I know the TVs is a kind of a drawing point, but the food should really be the star of the show because the food is always fantastic. Game day food with that southern twist coming out the Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. They're proud supporters of Friends Athletics, and we are certainly thankful of their support. Well, tonight you're going to hear from the Friends women's basketball coach, Dean Jaderston. And to open up 2024, the Friends women's basketball team fell to Tabor in a tight contest, but since then, back-to-back wins, a win against York and a road win against Avila last night. So we'll talk about those two games here in just a little bit. But, Coach, I think we do need to dive right into the very first game of 2024. Yes, it is an L, and yes, it's the second loss in conference play for your bunch. But I think if you were to just stop at the final score and see 58-54, I think some would maybe assume, okay, maybe they rallied and, just fell a little bit short, or maybe, there was a competitive ball game all the way through. You guys are down by 15, and you find a way to trim the margin down, and you get the ball with a chance to tie, and in 9 seconds left, you get the game-tying shot to fall with Trinity Johnson on a great play design, but there was an offensive foul called on an illegal screen, and that was that. So wipe the shot off the board. You have the foul. Tabor goes 1 of 2 at the free throw line, and the Blue Jays, they wind up staying unbeaten in conference play this year. But I got to say, Coach, when you're down by 15, you're going to see the true character of your squad. And I think sometimes, too, when you're down by 15, you kind of get in that mode of, we need to start jacking threes, but I don't think you really did that. You kept going inside, you relied on your defense, and you slowly chipped away, and you got to a position to where you had a chance to get the game-tying shot to fall through. So let's go back to the first game of 2024. Your thoughts on that game against Tabor?
Yeah, we first of all, thanks for bringing up the heartbreaker of the.
Yeah, I know. Every time I do it, I know.
That may be the most watched play in our office right now of the season. So no, it was. Down 15, and actually that was about 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. That game was a little bit like how we played the beginning of the first semester. Our offensive struggles that game, we were relying on the three a little too much. We were not. Tabor's a good, solid defensive team. They're not flashy, and so there's some ways you have to attack them, and we, for whatever reason, we weren't quite willing to do that. And so we were just grinding offensively. Nothing was clicking. Hats off to Tabor for a solid game plan against us defensively. But with this team, they play well in the second half. They don't get down on themselves. We've talked all season about having a short memory and just playing the next play. And we went with a little bit more of a defensive lineup. Candidly, about halfway through that run, I look out there and I said to my assistant, I was like, I can't believe this is the lineup we have on the floor right now for a comeback, because it wasn't our top 3 or 4 or 5 offensive lineups, but that group could guard. And what really triggered it was just a defensive intensity. We started trapping all over the court, and I think we converted 10 points off turnovers in that run. And it was like, get a turnover, throw it to Ray go score. And that was a lot of what we were getting right there. And we just picked up our intensity. With Tabor, you have to speed them up out of their rhythm, out of what they do, because they do their stuff really, really well. And all game, we were playing at their pace until the last 6 minutes. And yeah, it was a great run. We did everything we needed coming down the stretch. We missed a couple of free throws with a minute to go that would have changed the end of the game there. And even the play, the girls executed great. Cassie had a great screen, lined her up great. And if the girl doesn't trip over Cassie's foot, there's no call. And the girl pursued the play well and tripped and flew, and if she doesn't trip, the ref probably doesn't call it, and we're going to overtime, and we're 2-0 against Tabor in overtime the last 2 years. we just wanted to get there. So, but we learned something about our team that night. We're still learning how to play in those gritty games. We're still learning how to finish games, and it opened our eyes a little bit about, okay, what we can be if we get everybody on the same page. And you're starting the year. You've come off 2-a-day practices. We played a Mo Valley team that was missing a bunch of players, and they're still good. They went out the next day or the next week and beat Central Methodist. So it wasn't like they had nobody, but they did not have their full squad, and so we had a great win. But what did that tell us about ourselves? We weren't sure, and so yeah, we needed that Tabor game to just say, this is the next step for us. This is what we got to do. Now go build on it. So it was a heartbreaker to have that call. Really proud of our team for how we fought. And, it's on the flip side, it's, man, we're struggling offensively, but we were fouling at the end and still held Tabor to 58 points. So it's not like we went out and didn't play a solid defensive game.
Yeah, and like I asked you in the post game for that game at the beginning, the one thing Tabor does so well, as you brought up, they're always really good defensively, and I feel like they really know how to bait you into doing some things that all right, that looks open, I'm going to make that pass, and they're going to jump in front and they're going to get a steal, and then they're going to go down the other way, either run down the floor and score, or they're going to slow it down and run one of their 80,000 half-court sets that they seem to have in their back pocket, because that's what Sean Reed always has, and it has always been that way under his tutelage over there in Hillsborough. But, Taylor Jackson at the beginning of the first half, bringing up what Tabor does so well defensively, she had a couple of passes on a high-low trying to get down the ray and not successful, but, while she was – maybe a little bit frustrated with herself, she came back. I mean, she finished with 17 and 17, which that's the one thing I kind of asked you after the game was, I don't know if you issued a challenge. I think you don't need to, because she'll challenge herself. And she said, all right, I'm going to change. I'm going to be a dominant force down the stretch for my team, and they end up with 17 and 17. It's one of those great performances that you're always going to think about. I know it was a loss, but still 17 and 17 from Taylor, and to challenge yourself and to be able to respond, you got to be pleased with that as a coach.
Really pleased with Taylor. She's working, and this year adjusting her game as we go. So what happens first season, everybody watches you, and they don't know you, and so they're watching you on film. By this time of the year, everybody knows your stuff. Everybody knows your tendencies. Everybody's forcing you left or forcing you right, and so now you have to make the adjustment. You've got to have a counter to what is your favorite move. You've got to use a ball fake to make the defense jump, and then we've got to hit a shooter, and that shooter's got to make a shot so people don't double as much, and that's where we're still learning as a team. I think we've got to go inside out as they guard us, then kick it out, stretch the floor back, and then go back inside again. So we're learning that. We did a much better job of that in the last couple games, I thought, especially in the second quarter on. But we're learning how to adjust as a team. And again, when you have this many players that are playing together for the first time, okay, when this person's off, how do they play? When you're not hitting, what are you going to do to contribute? And the Tabor game showed us that whether it's on the defensive end, offensive end, on the boards, you have to make that adjustment, then go play and trust the process. And when they do, they can be pretty good.
Friends Women's Basketball coach Dean Jaderston here on the Friends Basketball Show on ESPN Wichita 92.3 FM, broadcasting from Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. The Friends Women's Basketball team so far in 2024, 2 wins, 1 loss, opening the new year with that loss to Tabor, but bounced back nicely with a 92-59 win against the York Panthers. You guys were down in that game in the second quarter, and I can't remember what the actual run was. Was it 28-2, I think is what it was. I remember you sat down and you're like, it was 28-2? And like, yes, that was the run between the second and third quarters. You find yourselves in a hole, and then all of a sudden you're leading by 17, and at that point, just go out there, handle your business, and everything's going to be all right. So you guys got a nice win against the York Panthers after that tough loss at Tabor. So I guess what really changed after the first quarter and a half to allow you to go on that big run to set the tone there for the rest of the way?
It's always tough when you come off a really hard game and you're playing a team that in the standings is significantly lower. And you go, okay, we're going to beat this team, and you go out and match up, and York is much more athletic and talented this year individually than perhaps that they've been, at least deeper into their roster. And we came out a little flat defensively. And again, we came out chucking threes to start the game instead of taking advantage of some of our mismatches. And I thought our starters played really flat to start. We brought our bench in. Actually, it's the first time this year, maybe the second, that I've subbed all 5 out in the first quarter. And hopefully it was a little bit of a wake-up call. Our bench came in, they stopped the bleeding, but we didn't surge. So we got a little bit better. In the Tabor game, I think we only had 6 points off our bench. That was one of the big factors that I felt when we went to the bench. Normally this season, we've gotten a really good lift. We've gotten a couple baskets. We've got some energy. And that was one of the things in the Tabor game that I was pretty disappointed in, that we didn't seem to get that. And so this game, yes, they came in, they kind of stopped the bleeding. We kind of played even for a while, but we were just kind of grinding that game, and there was no rhythm to it. And then there was just all of a sudden this switch. We picked up our defense. It was about 3 minutes to go. We were down 9, or I think it was 9 with 3 minutes to go, or something like that. And all of a sudden, there was a couple of defensive plays that triggered transition, and all of a sudden you could just see the energy come back. And second half we came out, and it was like coaching a different basketball team. What happened at the end of the first half, I think, sparked us and just said, okay, we're going to be fine. Let's just do our thing. Let's be us and not focus on them. I thought we did a really good job of taking away some of their primary scores in the second half and not letting them get the looks they got in the first half. And it was a 17-0 run, I think, or 17-2 run to start the half. And in that run, I thought we got great lift off our bench. We got great energy coming in, and people started making some plays. And the energy was good. It was just one of those you could see the team come together and start putting points up. So I forget what we had in the first half, but our scoring ended this in the last what would it be, 23 minutes of the game was pretty fun.
Well, we end up with 92 points in total, so that's good. And nearly a third of those points, coming from Ray. It's funny, like you see her score 30, and it's like, oh, it's about time she gets a 30, right? But it's like she's only a sophomore, and she's still like just getting better, and she's doing it too being efficient from the field and not really going to the free throw line 12 to 15 times a game like she potentially could. But for Ray to get into the 30-point club, how happy were you with that performance against York?
It was really it was a lot of fun, and it's one of those funny stories. So Ray had no clue. That's one of the great things about Ray. She just plays. And so we'd subbed everybody, the starting line about except for her, because she was at 28. And like she's passing the ball. Like the only reason you're in the game right now is to get one more basket because we want to get you that 30 mark. And so, it's one of those. We finally got her in transition. She was so tired. She comes off and when the girls told her, and there's this look of bewilderment. I mean, 30. I didn't know I was there. So that's the joy of Ray. The Ray gets you 10 points a game that you don't have to plan for. There's going to be an offensive rebound. There's going to be a transition. There's going to be a defensive play. She finishes through contact. My one gripe, our officiating, I think, has been pretty solid this year. My only one gripe this year is Ray's so athletic and strong. She absorbs so much contact and finishes through contact where a lot of other players in our conference are going to the free throw line. So if I can figure out a way to get that bounced out a little bit, but no, it was great to get her to the 30 mark, and her teammates were excited for her. It was just a fun night to have her at 30 and Taylor at 17 and 17. It was a picture for our team. Where's our bread butter? What can we go back to time and time again? And then when people are focused on that, now you're going to get wide open threes. And so if that message sinks in, we'll start games a lot better and I think finish games better.
Yeah, a lot of people scored in that game too against York Panthers. I think that's always something. I'm always just watching your assistant coaches, not really watching you, but more so watching your assistants, because it's almost like, let's try to get her a bucket. Okay, she got one. Now let's get her a bucket. And the reaction from your assistant coaches on the bench, it's just the funniest thing to watch.
Well, you got kids who work so hard.
Yeah.
They're working so hard, and basketball sometimes is a cruel sport because as you go through the season, your rotation shrinks. It doesn't expand. At the end of the season, you're playing your 8, 9, maybe 10 best players. But you got kids who are busting their tail every day in practice, and they're being great teammates, and they're cheering for their teammates, and they're warming up and stretching. They're prepared, but they probably won't play. And that's a hard place to be, especially we're recruiting good players. So they were maybe leading scorers on their high school team. They're used to playing all the time. And because we have good players ahead of them, they've got to be patient. And if your 13th and 14th and 15th players aren't the best 13th, 14th, and 15th players in the conference, you're going to struggle. They got to be great practice players. They got to be great teammates. They got to be ready for when they get in. So when they get those opportunities to play and succeed, we're really, really happy for them. We want to look for those opportunities because sometimes they can be few and far between, especially when you're at the top. If you're at the bottom of the conference, you can play everybody. It doesn't matter. But when you're in the hunt for the top first or second spot and, seeding for the tournament's on the line and a national tournament bid's on the line, you're shrinking that roster as you go through the season, finding out who your very, very best players are and how you're going to compete in those really tight situations. So, we're really excited when those kids hit the floor and play well and make plays. And that's part of being a good team is getting excited for everybody's success and being a part of it.
100%. Friends women's basketball coach Dean Jaderston here on the Friends Basketball Show on ESPN Wichita, broadcasting from Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. The Falcons have a game coming up on Saturday inside the Garvey Center taking on the Sterling Warriors. 5 o'clock tip-off time is what we have as of right now. Of course, we'll see how things progress with the Kansas weather and everything. Looks like Friday looks a little bit better, but you always have to be, very cautious about that situation. Well, last night the Falcons went on the road and they took on an Avila Eagle team, and the Friends women's basketball team got a 13-point win, 78-65. I was talking to Coach Dean Jaderston. Based on my experience, every time I go to Kansas City, someone is having an off shooting night. That's usually how it goes. You have to grind, I feel like, a lot at Avila, more so than, probably a good chunk of the places in the KCAC. And in the first quarter, you guys were down 18-9 at the end of the first frame. But in the second quarter, you put 29 on the board. You follow it up with 25 in the third and then you guys will go on to get the 13-point win. Your thoughts on the win at Avila last night?
Yeah, there's a theme here. I think 8 of our first 10 shots were threes, and none of them went in. So there's a reason why we were struggling coming out of the gate. And when we, like I said earlier, when we figure that out and get a little more patient to start, I think you'll see some better starts from us. Again, it was one of those slow start, but don't panic. Coach Lasky had a great observation, and so when we were struggling a little, we went a little bigger. We played Cassie and Taylor together, and it immediately got a nice high-low, and they were having a hard time matching up with two bigs, and that kind of turned the tide, and we started feeding the inside a little bit. Taylor had another really solid game. Ray had another solid game, and we got good energy and contribution off the bench. As you go through the season, sometimes the urgency of each game can get lost. Like, oh, here we go again. Okay, this girl's a three-point shooter. You can't let her get a three. You can't let her get an open look. Okay, coach. And then it might be a closeout that's a half step short or hands down a little bit. Their best shooter, we gave her 5 open looks in the first half, and she hits 3 threes. She goes 3 for 5 from 3. And none of them should have happened. If she hits one where they get a triple screen and she gets a window and gets it off, great. But these were all open looks. Second half, she didn't hit a 3 and didn't have one good look. And so we saw this shift in, okay, you can either go out and guard or you're going to be in a dogfight on the road, which you don't want to be. And she didn't hit a 3 in the second half. I think they went 1 for 8 or 1 for 9, something like that, from 3 in the second half. And that happened a lot because, again, I've talked about the season. We are starting to trust each other on defense. The way we guard in one of our defenses, you feel like you're on an island and you can't see what's happening behind you. You have to trust that the person behind you is going to do their job. And if you try and shorten that or try and protect yourself, you give up shots. If you get out and risk your teammates being there or not being there, that's when we're really good. And I thought it was our defense that really turned it up in that game, got us on a nice run. We had the ball. We were down 1, I think, or 2 with 2 seconds to go in the half. We executed a little finisher we practice every week and executed it to perfection. Corey gets an uncontested layup with 2 seconds to go. We go in the locker room with the lead. And that momentum just, okay, look, we were down. Here we did it again. Now let's go out and just play. In the second half, we really opened it up. And I thought it was just a good, solid performance for us on a road in a place that's always been hard for us to play. I think we've lost there. We've won a close one. We won a phenomenal overtime game a couple of years ago. Last year we were going through all those injuries, and we actually dropped on the road there to a team that wasn't real strong. So to come back and play and finish and play well, that was really good for us.
No doubt. Well, as you brought up, you went big with Cassie, and Cassie finished with 7 and 7. So I'd like to see that off the bench. But also, too, Lauren McIver finishes with 12. I don't know what she's at in terms of rebounding and assists the last couple of games to start 2024, but I feel like that shouldn't go unnoticed.
If you want to look at maybe the single most variable that has improved, that's made everybody better, it's been Lauren. She came in, and her natural spot is a 2 or the 3. And because of how recruiting goes, it was like, okay, Lauren, we need you to play the point this year. And if you look at her first game, she was trying to do too much. She was over penetrating, and now she's looking for people. She's finding people, and she's also figuring out when her moments are and when she can be at her most effective. The other thing I'm really proud of Lauren for is I thought early in the season she was playing with a long memory. When I say that, I mean she'd make a bad play or she'd miss a shot, and we'd lose her for 30 seconds because she was mad at herself and frustrated. And great point guards are probably going to lead you in turnovers. They're going to have the ball in their hands the most. They're going to be making plays. They've got to make decisions, and it's their responsibility to get everybody going. If you're thinking about the last play, you're not going to do it. And she has done a remarkable job of transforming into a really, really good point guard. Sees people in transition, is figuring out when to attack. Her assist to turnover ratio has gotten better and better as the season goes. And she's so long and smooth. She makes some plays that you don't even really notice because they just happen. Sometimes people can be dynamic. They'll make this great play. Like, wow, that was great. Lauren's running sometimes, and you think she's not going hard, but then you realize she's passing people. So it's fun to see her grow as a player this year. I think a lot of our success down the stretch is going to be how well she continues to play at the point. But, she's made great strides. And if you look at Ray's success, you look at Taylor's success, how many of their points come off assists from Lauren, it's fun to watch.
Well, coming up on Saturday, you take on Sterling. If anyone has followed the conference over the last so many years, Warriors have had such a great run. This year, a little bit different. They lost so much talent due to graduation. They do bring back some important pieces, but you can tell it's a different Sterling team. But if there's one thing I do know about the Warriors is, although they are young, each and every game you would think they're going to get better. But the one thing you can also say, too, though, is Corinne Clayson has 2 40-point games this year, and there's not a lot of players that can say that. So I'm sure that in itself is probably the main challenge for what you're going to see on Saturday.
Yeah, she's playing. They do not have all the weapons they've had in the past, but they still got some of them. Clayson can play, and what she's doing a year off of ACL injury is nothing short of amazing. The Heskamp girl, the transfer, I think, from Barton, she's playing better and better as she gets used to the system, and Breyer can always make threes. We've got to make sure we don't get too focused on any one person because they can play. They've played people tough. They've got some big wins this year. They're just trying to figure out there was a group of kids, they're all local, that came through from Comley to Wilson and the Bangerts and they were all Stuckey, and they were all these Central Kansas kids that lightning in a bottle for about 4 or 5 years. They were really fun to watch. Now they got to figure out a different style. And one of the hardest things is when you have success, then you have the next group of kids in, you can't recreate what you did. You got to figure out what works with this kids. And I think Coach Bassett is still trying to put those pieces together, especially at the defensive end. But their kids are scrappy. They're fighting. They're battling. And they were one turnover away from a big fourth quarter come-from-behind win last night. And one of the things this year that's a little deceptive is, for whatever reason, how the conference was set. There are some patterns in terms of scheduling. Avila is a really good team. Their only losses in conference play were St. Mary on the road, Tabor on the road, Sterling on the road to start the season, and it was another top team on the road. Before road losses, maybe Kansas Wesleyan or Bethany, I forget. Before, they were undefeated at home and playing well, but because of who they played when, their record looked poorly, more poor than it was.
Yeah.
You look at a couple of these teams that had really good winning records early on. They played maybe some of the weak teams, and then all of a sudden, Sterling's one of those that's played some really good people all the way through. They're going to be good. We have great matchups against them. They're going to have to struggle against our size a little bit, and if we trust that, and like I said, play inside out, we should be in good shape. But it's going to be a big game with this. From a program standpoint, you always look at what gyms have you won in, what gyms haven't you won in, who have you beat, who haven't you beat. Since I've been at Friends, Sterling's the one team that we haven't beat yet, and we've been so close in so many games. Right there, they were ranked 8th. I mean, we had a lead with 30 seconds to go and lost to a tough 3-point shot. So that's one that is our girls mentally, psychologically, let's get this one. Then we've wiped the slate clean and go from there, and we get this winning streak built to 3 and keep going.
Yeah. All right, Coach, thanks for the time. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Dean Jaderston from Friends Women's Basketball here on the Friends Basketball Show. The Friends Falcons, they have started the new year 2-1. A couple of conference wins against York and Avila, and a tough loss to Tabor. So the Friends Falcons so far this year overall 10-5, 7-2 in the KCAC, still in the hunt near the very top of the conference. Coming up on Saturday, it is Sterling College. 5 o'clock tip. Catch it inside the Garvey Center. Hope to see you there. Well, that does it for us here today. Appreciate Walk On Sports Bistreaux, the best place in town to catch all of the NFL action this weekend, and so on and so forth. Come out, try their food with a southern twist. It's always fantastic out here at Walk On Sports Bistreaux. For Dean Jaderston, I'm Pat Strathman saying so long from Walk On Sports Bistreaux. Thank you so much for watching and listening to another edition of the Friends Basketball Show on ESPN Wichita, 92.3 FM.